Hello and welcome to another Win Daily Show. The boys are back in town. I got my man Sia and with me. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good, man. I got a question for you though.
Talk to me.
So, if you are going to kind of represent Major League Baseball and you're going
hmm
to throw at the Astros, okay?
Okay.
And you are going to kind of be that sort of tough guy. Like, wouldn't the tougher thing to do to be to like stay on the mound and induce a fight or something like that? You tell me. You're the baseball guy.
Yeah, I mean it's Joe Kelly's Fight Club, right? So yeah, he I think he should have I think he should have hit somebody. Like if you're gonna throw at somebody's head. So first off, I don't condone throwing at anyone's head. Absolutely hit somebody. I'm totally cool if you get some. Okay, I'm sorry,
I mean, you literally just said he should have hit somebody, and then you just said
but
I
not
don't
at somebody's
condone
head.
that kind of.
I don't condone hitting somebody, throwing at someone's head. I mean, obviously, you're throwing 98 at someone's temple. Like, there's some stuff that can get messed up there. I 100% think he should have hit somebody, though. You can hit someone in the back and leave a mark, and their career is not going to be over. Nothing crazy is going to happen. So, I do want to say that, and it might be a little off-putting for some people, but yes, don't throw at someone's head. 1000% throw at their back, throw at their ass, throw at their thigh. I don't care, just leave the head and neck out of it. I think, that's one thing we don't really want to mess around with a little bit. But yeah, I agree. I think he should have absolutely hit both of those guys rather than kind of scaring them. I really did like his little, pouty face to Correa and all that stuff. But Joe Kelly's known to be somewhat of an asshole, if I guess I can say that. So it's really not too surprising he was the guy that went out. Now, an 8-game suspension in a 60-game season, I think equates to about 22 games. At least that's what the TV tells me. So it's a lot. But yeah, I mean, I kind of wish he hit somebody.
Fair enough. It is ironic that the smallest guy on like the team basically picked on one of the bigger guys on the other team with by throwing a baseball at him. Like it's like the
Yes.
ultimate sucker punch move. You know what I mean? It's
Mhm.
whatever. I don't know.
It's definitely something, man. I don't know. Again, I'm for it. But it is what it is. We'll figure it out and we'll move on. But there's a lot of other stuff that we get to talk about today too. I mean, Jake Grom gave up 2 runs, so pretty much the entire Mets season's over. So nothing really to do there. But I'm excited to talk to you about some PGA. We're going to be talking a lot about the PGA. This is mostly a PGA show now, but you and I can't not talk about football. So I don't care what Jason says. We're going to do whatever the hell we want at that point. So we're going to be grinding some WGC, FedEx, St. Jude, Invitational lineups. And then we're going to be talking a little bit about the NFL COVID opt-in, opt-out situation that's been going on over there in the NFL with a bunch of people and some surprising names. No quarterbacks yet. So I'm curious if we'll see any quarterbacks come down, but I think
Not
we're
any
going to be.
starting quarterbacks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. But we'll see what happens there. So yeah, man, let's get in it. So we have the WGC FedEx St. Jude Invitational. One thing I've seen that's actually really interesting, and we haven't played with this yet since you and I get to do these on a weekly basis, there's no
Mhm.
cut. There's no cut
Right.
for this event, which is pretty weird. So I guess if you don't mind giving us a little bit of like a history or a background or a backstory on kind of is this a normal event? Does this happen once a year, or is this kind of something that happens multiple times a year in terms of the no cut aspect? Like how do you usually see that, and what is that like?
Yeah, I think this is a couple times a year. It's just a special field. It's I mean it's not an invitational, but this happens. This is one of those tournaments where that's just a thing.
Okay.
And there's, from a daily fantasy standpoint, it's not the greatest thing because you kind of want to have that cut sweat and you kind of want to be like, okay, I survived the cut. Or, these days it's like I survived the 5 out of 6, or,
hmm
like last week, 6 out of 6, I believe was 2%. So, I mean, getting 5 out of 6 is sort of like the new standard, the new gold standard, if you will. So, not having that, like, it's just, I don't know how fun this one's going to be from a daily fantasy standpoint. I mean, we'll just kind of have to wait and see. And I mean, not only is there no cut, but like, implicitly there's less players too, right? So there's
hmm
78 players, I believe. So, that kind of lends itself to, not as much, variance, not as much variation, not as many kind of like low end guys that you can spike, Gronk spike at the, on Sunday. So, like I did with Adam Schenk, remember last week, the old secret weapon.
hmm
So yeah, that's what we have. It's obviously a talented field. It's loaded up top. The guys down low, some of them are, frankly aren't really that good, and some of them are pretty good. So, we'll get into that.
And we'll have a secret weapon. You got to grab that in the Discord. Make sure to hop over to the Win Daily Sports Discord. Everything on Win Daily, $20 for a month. You get all the articles, you get all the projection models, you get all of us in the Discord hanging out. MLB's been going crazy. PGA, it's going crazy tonight, but the lock's not till 12. So I'm really excited to see what it's like tomorrow when everyone is like talking about MLB and we're like, oh, wait a second, we can actually pay PGA. Okay, let's hop over there and see what happens. So I'm excited to see what that looks like tomorrow morning. That should be a lot of fun.
What's interesting about that is for the past 6 weeks, a lot of us have been waking up at, 6:45 or whatever 5 minutes or 10 minutes before a lock is to make sure there's not a COVID related withdrawal or something like that. Unfortunately, that really hasn't happened. Like that first week or second week, I think there was some like legit COVID news sort of at the last minute or the last few hours, but we haven't had that. So the PGA bubble, non-bubble is actually working quite well.
And yet the Miami Marlins, over half of their 30-man squad has, I think it's up to 18 now, or it's 16 with 2 coaches. So gotta love baseball. Gotta love baseball. We'll get into maybe a little more Joe Kelly Fight Club and the Marlins later. But so I guess in that case, one thing that I read in Patrick Scott's article at DFS Patrick Scott, make sure to follow him on Twitter. Make sure to hop in the Discord, ask him a lot of questions. You can go read his insight article right now on WinDailySports.com. One thing that I found really interesting, and I don't know if you follow this same attitude or outlook on it. He said, don't play cash games because the whole point of a cash game is if you get 6 out of 6, you're most likely making money. But everyone's going to get 6 out of 6. So you're kind of putting up, it's kind of this why bother at that point. And do you feel kind of the same way about this type of tournament?
Yes and no. I wouldn't really go that far, but I understand his point because you're not getting that built-in reassurance that you would normally get on a Friday night. Like, oh, sweet, I had 5 out of 6 that made the cut in my cash game or my heads-up match. He only had 3 out of 6. Like, I can just sort of watch like my team decimate his team Saturday and Sunday. I mean, but conceptually, if you have, if you're 6 golfers, if on Friday night 6 of them are in the top 20 and the guy you're going against has, a few bottom feeders out there, then you're probably, in pretty good shape. I mean, 6 in the top 20 is probably unrealistic, but you know what I'm saying? So like, you could make the opposite argument that it's more fun because you're going to have that balance of like Saturday and Sunday, just kind of going back and forth like a prize fight. So to his point though, this isn't a week where I'm investing a ton of money relative to, weeks prior. So I won't really have much by way of I might have a couple heads up matchups because I think those are really, really good ideas. Win or lose, I think they're really good ideas because, you're singling out one opponent and hopefully you're winning, 70% of the time, 65% of the time, and slowly building that bankroll for your, your milli makers or for your single or 3 max entry tournaments.
I use my cash games to fund my betting on DraftKings. So I make the 5, 10, 15, 20 bucks, whatever it is, and then I go lose it. And it's a lot of fun that way. I have this system now that I'm working with. So it's working for me. Maybe I'll have to tell you a little bit more on some of these bets because it seems like you're doing a pretty damn good job there too.
Before we get into that elite price range, and we'll just kind of go down the list, is there a minimum? Because I don't use DraftKings Sportsbook. That's not the sportsbook I use. Do they have a minimum bet? Do you know?
I don't know, honestly. I've never tried to do anything like $2, $3, $4. I mean, I put $5 on games and it's fine. If I'm not confident, but
in that case, for the Barracuda Championship, which I know they have odds for, I need you to put $5 on the following 3 guys.
Okay.
Adam Schenk, which should be around 60-1. Robbie Shelton, who should be around 80-1. And who was the last guy? I'm gonna have to think of it later, but I put it on Twitter. Yep. Those 3 guys. It's Seamus Power at 100-1.
Seamus, how could you forget Seamus?
I know. So put $5 on each of those 3 guys.
Okay.
And let's hopefully have a sweat on Sunday. Obviously long odds, but
that's fine.
These guys have been pretty hot lately, and I think the number is too high for all of them.
I love it. I will have to I'll have to do that at the end of our stream. I'll put those $3 $5 bets in and we'll maybe win some money. We'll see what happens. But let's get into it. So as you said, we have about 70 something golfers, 78, 76, whatever that number was. We're down in Memphis, Tennessee, not too far from Johnson City. I actually don't know. They just talk about it in that one Hootie and the Blowfish song. But let's get into it a little bit. Thank you. Did you get that? That
was nice. A little bit? Yeah, I'm a big Hootie guy.
Yeah. Thank you. So let's hop into it, man. I mean, let's talk about some of those elite guys and where we are, especially again with this really weird field, as you said, it's packed up top. So who are you looking at to take a couple shares of, and who are you looking to fade a little bit?
So in the elite range, so we're talking 10,000 and up, and I'm talking DraftKings prices, but obviously if you're playing FanDuel, you can kind of follow
Figure it
along.
out.
It's pretty similar. Yeah, exactly. So, you got to take a stance on some of these guys. Obviously, they're in an elite class for a reason. So I'm not going to tell you like why Rory McIlroy is a terrible choice. Like that would be silly of me. But the two guys, I should say there's really one guy in this range I'm really taking a stand on that I really like is Justin Thomas. But I'll tell you, most of my lineups are actually starting in the 9K range. That's just how I've decided to build most of my lineups is to start somewhere like in that Terrell Hatton, Berger, Simpson, Xander range. But if I was going to pick, and I will have some lineups where I pick a guy up top, I'll start with Justin Thomas. And then if I had to pick a second place, it would be Rory McIlroy and then Jon Rahm. I'm fading Bryson. He wasn't great his last time out. Remember, he had that 10 on a pretty easy par 5, but that's not why I'm fading him. I just don't think his length is really going to benefit him here. It's not the type of course where you can bomb it and just, be on in 4 or, be on in 2. It's just a lot of long par 4s. He should be fine. But at this price range, I'm going to go for like a classic ball striker. And that's what Justin Thomas is. So I don't need to spend a lot of time in this range, but I would say if I was going to take a couple guys here, I would start with JT and then I'd work my way down to Rory, maybe a couple shares of Rahm, but I'm pretty much avoiding McIlroy and Cantlay. I can tell you from an ownership standpoint, the only guy that's not really well owned is Bryson. Steven has his article out already, and I haven't had a chance to look at his numbers versus the numbers that I have. His numbers are far more accurate. You can read them on the website, Win Daily Sports. When I say far more, we're talking a couple of percentage points here and there, but that's still very important. So Bryson is clearly the guy that's going to be the contrarian pick, which I know sounds kind of weird. So if you were trying to go contrarian, Bryson's actually a good way to start there.
And I am just looking at this article. Bryson DeChambeau, 11.5% owned right now. So that is just so weird to me, considering how much he's been crushing it, that even the public isn't that far on him. Is that alarming to you at all?
Not really. I mean, the problem here is the public saw Bryson last tournament. He didn't do so well. And then now they see a tournament with Jon Rahm, who's the number 1 player in the world now and who won last time he was out. Rory McIlroy, Justin Thomas, who's just always going to be that big name who people trust. And he's probably going to be, the most chalky with Rory up here. And Patrick Cantlay, he's going to be a little lower, but like there's too much to fit in here. And I think Bryson, because of how he's done the last couple tournaments, and frankly, his iron play hasn't really been that good. So, just like most courses, approach is really important here. And he hasn't really been on point, whereas a guy like JT really has been on point. Cantlay is normally on point. Rory is still considered this godlike figure who frankly hasn't really been coming through lately, but he's also on point with his irons usually. So, that's where we're at. I'm surprised the Bryson number is that low, but it doesn't shock me at all.
Yeah, Rory, I mean, this entire he still hasn't won a tournament, if I'm not mistaken, since the restart. And There's only been a couple where he's even really been in contention on Sunday, it feels like it. I mean, hey, if people are going to take him, people are going to take him. But eventually the dude's going to win. We know how freaking good he is. So it is expected at some point. So
yes, I guess you're right about that. But I mean, and by the way, on Sundays, when he's not in it, he seems to like really not care, which kind of makes sense. Not like Dustin Johnson not care, but like, that's a different class of not care. But like Rory, and I don't know, I don't want to like go down too far down like narrative street here, but like, where's the sound effect? Can I get a sound effect? Nice. But I mean, this guy is the richest. I mean, he's the richest of them all. And I just wonder if on Sundays when he's like 7 shots back, if he's just kind of like, why would I be stressed out about this? Why would I be intense in a moment like this? And I guess you could say that about a lot of the golfers who are super rich, but Rory seems to kind of just like go through the motions on Sunday when he's out of it. And that would scare me, when you've got some of these other guys that you can get for a much lower price that will definitely be dialed in, like a Patrick Reed, for example, who does not let his foot off the gas, those types of guys who would just Morikawa, Hovland, who are just constantly pedal to the metal kind of thing.
Yeah, I like that. How about do you like that one?
That's better. Yeah,
I think I like that one. Yeah, it feels like we're telling a story a little bit, and
I like it.
I think we'll rock with that moving forward.
Let's do that.
So as we know now, Sia, this show of ours is on Wednesdays because it's going to be very PGA heavy. Sia and I are already in discussion. We're in contract discussions with Win Daily about a second show, though. Everybody, do not worry. We're trying to figure something out because we have way too much fun together. So we're gonna have to do something. Oh yes.
If I may,
should I make the noise?
You did no need. Okay. You did lead the show with, we're going to talk PGA and NFL. So we're talking about shows and, once or twice a week, like, let's not forget, because we're going to get really NFL heavy on SiriusXM this weekend and every weekend, thereafter. So, just to give people like a peek behind the curtain, like there's about 8 segments you carve out on each, 2-hour show, which you have on Saturday and I typically have on Sunday. And what's going to happen is like half of those are going to be NFL intensive is my guess. So from a fantasy football standpoint, yes, we're having our Win Daily live streams with like Nick at Sticks Picks and other people like during the week. But FYI, SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Channel 11 to 1, you can find us talking a lot of NFL too.
A lot of NFL, and we're going to have a lot of fun with that. And we're going to talk a little NFL later. Don't worry. Don't worry, everybody. We're still here. We're still here. We still love you. All right. So that is the top tier range. And just one quick question, I guess, more about the whole field. But as we saw last week, somebody, player to be unknown, just kind of got hurt, give or take, question mark, air quotes, got hurt and took himself out. In a field like this, do you see like this type of invitational? If one of these guys, especially one of these dudes at the top, is really just playing piss poor, do you think there's anything like that could potentially happen again? Or do you think they just literally mail it in for Saturday and Sunday and just shoot like 17 over?
No, it could absolutely happen, especially we have a major next week. So you get a guy like DJ, or let's say a guy like Kevin Na or Jason Day, who classically have these like back injuries or vertigo or whatever Jason Day has on any given day. So yeah, that's a worry, and especially with the no cut event. So in a no cut event, you could take a guy at the bottom of the barrel, let's say a Nick Taylor, who I actually kind of like this week. He's 6,100. You're getting 4 rounds out of Nick Taylor. I mean, whether he's good or bad, he's probably going to get you points Saturday and Sunday, regardless. But a guy like Kevin Na might withdraw with a back injury. So that's both good and bad in DFS. It's good because if you play him, you're probably going to be contrarian because most people are afraid of Kevin Na. A lot of people are afraid of Jason Day, not because of their skills, but because of their potential to withdraw in a no-cut event. Like that is like your worst case scenario. So you can pick up leverage on those people by playing those guys. I'll probably be playing Jason Day, FYI. But yeah, that can happen, especially with, anybody who tweaks their wrist or anything. They're like, this is not as important as next week. I'm out of here.
And just for curiosity's sake, Jason Day is at around 7.5% owned right now, according to our good friend Steven, who has some incredible numbers, and we appreciate the hell out of him. So thank you for that. I do appreciate it. I always love being educated here on the Win Daily Show. Let's pop down one more level. So this is the 9K range. Talk to me here. Who are some of the golfers we're looking at?
So I love the first 6 guys in this range, and I hate everybody else. And so 6 out of, let's see, there's 10. I mean, that's kind of a lot. So I do have to narrow it down a little bit. Let me just start, though, with Webb Simpson and Xander Schauffele. Webb is a really good course fit here. These are the greens he likes to putt on. Like, this is like, and by the way, Xander also is a good course fit here, and he's really good at no-cut events for some reason. I think that's kind of a weird narrative to really get into, but Xander can go low any given round. No need. Not right now.
Okay.
That's he's a guy that can go low, but he also tends to have a bad day, but that's not really going to hurt him at a no-cut event. So the problem with both of them, though, I'm typically not huge fans of them, but the bigger problem is they're really highly owned. I mean, I got to double check with Steven's article, but they're both nearing 20%. So
who are we talking about? I'm sorry.
Xander Schauffele and Webb Simpson.
All right, let's see. Webb Simpson, we got 17 and 18, and Schauffele's at 20. So
yeah. So I mean, I'm already out on Xander there because, again, Xander's not really one of my go-to guys in the first place. I understand why people like him, but if he's already like one of the chalkiest guys if he's already one of the chalkiest guys like in the whole tournament, and I like 5 other guys in this range, there's no reason to put my eggs in that basket. Just I don't see it. So I'll go right down to Terrell Hatton, who's definitely going to be lower owned. I'm tracking, again, these are my numbers pre Steven's article, but they're pretty close. Hatton's at about 13%. Daniel Berger's at about 13%. Both amazing ball strikers. I like them both. Both have been very, very hot this year. I think Hatton's played 3 tournaments on the year, and he's top 10 to all of them.
Yep.
And Berger's been, other than a miscut at Memorial, which I kind of give him a pass for. Memorial was an extremely tough track with tough conditions. So, I'll be honest, I might start my teams with Hatton, some combination of Hatton, Berger, Morikawa, or Hovland. I might grab 2 of those guys and then just start working my way down, which is a little unorthodox because people typically like to grab an elite guy, but I don't think you need to do that here. I don't think the drop-off from a guy like Bryson or Cantlay or even Rory right now is that big down to Terrell Hatton, Berger, Morikawa, and Hovland. I mean, if you just look at their play the last 6-7 weeks, there's just it's not apples and oranges. I'm sorry. Like I know people have like this thing in their mind about how certain golfers are relative to other golfers, but that's not the case right now. So I'm willing to kind of dip down. So that covers kind of Morikawa and Hovland. I mean, Morikawa and Hovland, great ball strikers. Hovland's a little sketchy around the green. That's going to be a little bit of a bigger component, but he's been better in that area, so I'm not too worried about that. Morikawa's ball striking is amazing. His long iron game, which is going to be important here, and just so you know, Michael, what I mean by that is like 175 to 200 yards, as opposed to like 150 yard iron, which that's going to come into play here because there's a lot of long par fours. Morikawa just rates so well in that category, so I like him a lot. So Hatton, Berger, Morikawa, and Hovland in that 9K range, I will be on.
Very, very excited for that. I always love seeing Morikawa. I mean, he's only missed one cut so far, right?
One cut.
One cut. It was a couple weeks ago, and it wasn't directly after he unfortunately that first event when he just lipped out in the playoff, but it was soon after, and he just didn't look great. Now, going back to narrative talk a little bit, have any of these guys been playing is this a tune-up more so for the major that's going to be next week, or like how do you see, again, playing with narratives, like how do you feel like this tournament kind of stacks up in those terms?
I think it's a tune-up for some players, but it would be almost impossible to determine who those players are. I'll give you a good example. Henrik Stenson, who, by the way, rates out really well in this course, but basically hasn't played this year, or at least not since the restart. This would be a perfect time for him to come back and tune up for a major next week. Tommy Fleetwood only played last week, which he missed the cut. I mean, it kind of looked like a tune-up for him, and this might be a continuation of that tune-up, this week going into the major next week. So, that I don't really, that narrative I'm not really playing with too much. I'm also not messing with the narrative of Brooks Koepka only, competes at majors. He's just sort of sucking right now, and that's just a nice excuse his fans put on him, but that's not really a thing. So yeah, no, I see where you're going with that, but it's very hard to narrow the scope of who those players are.
And that makes sense. And I think I just saw something come across the ESPN ticker earlier today talking about when Brooks Koepka gets surgery, not really if. So yeah,
makes sense.
Again, might just be something, he's putting out there because he has sucked, and Bryson's really become the darling of, big buff golf dudes. But, it is definitely something to pay attention to a little bit. So as you said, really not paying attention to that top level, really going to start grabbing a bunch of dudes in that 9K level. I assume there's a couple in the 8K that you're really liking as well.
Yeah, I'm starting to warm up to Patrick Reed, although he's getting a little chalky too. He's, from last I saw, he was nearing that 20% range, which I don't love. But I'll tell you, if I go down a little bit, Gary Woodland I really like. So his ball striking has been pretty good the last two tournaments. He was having a really hard time off the tee. By the way, he didn't do great at the Memorial, but again, I'm giving people a pass for that because the conditions were so tough. So I like Woodland. He changed his driver. He's been pretty good off the tee since then. That's where he was losing most of his strokes. He's good on approach. He's a good putter. So I like him quite a bit at 8,600. The other guys I like in the 8K range, Abraham Answer, again, he's getting a little chalky too, but I also like Jason Day, who's definitely under 10%. And I really like Sergio Garcia, who's in that 10% range. I did see Steven's numbers on Sergio, and he is at about 10%. So those are pretty much all the 8K guys I like. I'm not playing Ricky Fowler or Jordan Spieth. Never do. I'm not doing it.
Say, my poor grandma, if only she knew you and what you would do to her favorite golfer, I'm sure she'd be a little disappointed. So again, it's going to be a very, as we speak about occasionally, sometimes it's stars and scrubs, sometimes it's a very balanced lineup. It sounds like this is going to be a lot more balanced. Might be a couple guys in that 7K range though, and I know we have a secret weapon. We're obviously not going to tell you. Don't be ridiculous, but it'll be in the Discord again. Hang out with us in the Win Daily Discord. All you have to do is at Sia and say, "Hey Sia, what's your secret weapon?" Because he's 3 for 3 so far on cuts, and I think all 3 have finished in the top 20, right?
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah. It was Shank last week. It was Wawrinski the week before, and I believe it was Chez Reavie. Those are the last 3 weeks. Yes, I might have the order wrong, but they've been awesome.
They've all been awesome. Sia's been making money, and our good friend Steven loves Sia and his secret weapon picks. So I always find it very funny. But okay, cool. So let's hop down to that 7K range. What are we looking at there? And again, how many of these guys and what kind of shares are we looking at?
So yeah, this is the range where you're going to probably make a difference in your fantasy lineup. This is where you really got to pick right. And it's just a really difficult range. Actually, like Matt Kuchar a little bit. He's pretty low owned. He's looking at like 6-7%, which I like. If we go down, I mean, Kevin Na is a risk. I'm not really going to be taking that risk. But if we go down to 7,400, I like Joaquin Neiman. Good iron player, long off the tee. You don't necessarily, I mean, he's not like Bryson Long. You don't need to be super long, but he checks a lot of the boxes. He can have some accuracy issues at times, but I like Joaquin Neiman at 7,400. He's tracking at about 10, 12%. I like Ian Poulter too. Ian Poulter typically picks up a lot of strokes putting, or at least lately he has. And that's not necessarily a metric I'm in love with. But first of all, I should mention this is a track that's going to be probably windy this weekend. So Poulter's a guy who's good in wind. He's a guy that can hang with the big boys he has in the past. So at 7,400, I actually like him quite a bit. And then rounding out the 7K range, I'll give a shout out to my guy Max Homa. But honestly, the guy I really like that's right around 5% is Danny Willett.
Okay, and I gotta ask, how does someone be good and win? Like how is a particular what is a golfer doing to be better than the other golfers and win? Because
a lot of it is
doesn't make any sense.
yeah. Well, a lot of it is experience in wind. So a lot of these players from Europe, for example, play in the wind all the time, and they're just, they have a lot of rounds with wind where you can actually like read the stats and be like, okay, I have enough of a sample size to say like. So there's a lot of these players where you're not necessarily sure whether they're good in wind or not because maybe you don't have the best sample size because not like. There's some courses where it's easier to play in wind. There's some courses where it's harder to play in wind. There's some courses where it's super windy with gusts of like 25 to 30, and sometimes it's like 10 to 15 miles an hour. So I think we're looking at 10 to 15 miles per hour sort of sustained throughout this entire tournament. So and a lot of rain too here and there. So we're gonna have some interruptions, which is going to be frustrating for betting and DFS. But there are some guys that definitely are good in wind. And by the way, Max Homa is one of them. He's been Steven and I were talking about that before the show. He's pretty good in wind too. So Ian Poulter and Max Homa in that low 7K range, I like quite a bit.
Yes, Steven has a section in his article called Weather Related, and he puts in Max Homa and Shane Lowry down there, which I just think is pretty funny. So I love it. We got some
Shane
good
Lowry's
shit over
another
here,
guy.
man. We got some good shit over here at Win Daily Sports. And so let's go down. I mean, we're going down to the 6K range. As you said, it's a pretty stacked field up at the top. So unless you're taking 3 of those 9K guys, you probably aren't going to really have to dip too deep into that 6K range unless you want to look really smart in front of your friends and beat them on a head-to-head because Sia gave you a very incredible secret weapon, which, of course, we're not going to tell you here again. But talk to me about the 6K range. Who are some of these punt plays that you're liking a little bit?
Yeah, and they're not. A lot of them won't really be considered punts because they're like legitimate guys. And one of those is Kevin Streelman. He's been very good lately. He's good with his irons. He's 6,900. He's under 10% owned. A lot of these 6K guys are going to be under 10% owned, if not under 5% owned. So I like him. Christian Bezedenhout at 6,800. I like quite a bit. Chez Reavie at 6,700. He's been great. Good iron player, not super long, doesn't necessarily need to be super long. Problem with him, he's getting a little chalky, but that's okay. You can be chalky at places. Don't avoid all the chalk, just avoid some chalk. That's sort of how this works, especially if, there's a difference between obviously the Millie Maker and, a 3 max. I'll tell you, Antonio's article lays out, I mean, our articles aren't just like picks, like it's like so crazy. He actually not only singled out players, I think it was Antonio. I hope I'm not misrepresenting this. It was one of our writers.
It was Patrick.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was Patrick. That's right. Okay.
I'm sure both of them are totally okay with it. Don't worry.
Yeah. So Patrick actually like parsed it out. Whereas like if you're playing a cash game, if you're playing a GPP, if it's a 20 max, if it's a Millie Maker, if it's a 3 max, if it's a single entry, and he gave players for every single sort of, type of tournament, cash versus GPP and every type of GPP. So that's like astounding. I mean, that's not what you see in other sites. I know because I've been there. So not only do we have articles like mine, which just have, picks at each range, or Antonio's, we also have Stevens, which has like a model that's more sophisticated than most ownership models. But then we have other guys like Patrick and Isaiah like breaking down, and Joel now breaking down like, different ways to attack different tournaments and cash games, which is pretty impressive. But yes, I digress. Let's go down.
I do want to hop on that point for 1 second. Of course, we love all our writers. And yes, Joel, we have a new writer here at Win Daily Sports who literally specializes in showdown slates. So you can be on the lookout for the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday showdown slates. Our buddy Joel over here. At Draft Master Flex. What the hell is up? Let's go. You can follow him over there on the Twitters. Make sure to hang out with him in Discord, but he will be putting out showdown slate articles, and Joel poor gentleman only won 50K 2 weeks in a row when he could have had 150K in one of the weeks. So he knows what he's doing. He puts out some really great content. We're really glad to have him here over on the team too. So you get your entire tournament, but then we're breaking it down day by day too now. So we're very excited about that. So I digress. Please, Sia.
So, the 6K, like, so if we go below Shez Reavy, I personally, don't like a ton of guys here. But if we go in the low 6K range, I think Keegan Bradley is worth taking a shot at. I kind of like Tom Lewis at 6,200. My secret weapon might be sort of in this range. So get into Discord for that. And then I'll just round it out with Nick Taylor at 6,100. I think a lot of us on the team like Nick Taylor. Steven's one of them. And I'll tell you, we do a cheat sheet at Win Daily, and we post it on, the windailysports.com website. So I'll just give some picks there. So in the 6K range, as a team, we like Nick Taylor, Streelman, and Mackenzie Hughes showed up on some of the models as well. So that's another guy to consider in that 6K range. But that's pretty much it. That rounds out a lot of the guys that we like. Again, that cheat sheet is up there, and it actually isolates every single person that the writers like from a 10K, 9K, 8K, and so on, and a cash and a GPP and a fade. So I'll tell you some of the fades. Some of these are, I guess, somewhat obvious. Mine certainly is obvious. A couple of us faded DJ. Fleetwood is another fade. Brooks Koepka and Bryson DeChambeau. That's the group of fades on our cheat sheet, which again is on windailysports.com.
Yes, everybody put Dustin Johnson in your lineup and cry after he takes himself out after a terrible round one. So that's always fun. So that is fantastic, and we appreciate the hell out of you, Sia, for giving us some of the DFS stuff for golf. But come on, man, you know why we're here. You know exactly why we're here.
No, I hear you, man.
Let's talk about these bets a little bit. As we all know, Sia doesn't even give a shit about anything that's not at least 30, 35 to 1. So who are some of our long shots? I mean, last week we had Werenski. We were sweating that all the way till Sunday. I think you started hedging out, so hopefully you made a couple bucks still on that. So talk to me, man. Who are we looking at this week for some of our long shots?
So, if I was going to take a 30 to 1 shot or lower, if I was going to, it would probably be Morikawa, and he's looking at about 25 to 1. You can catch him at 30 to 1 depending on what market you're in. But if we're going to go longer, I like Gary Woodland at 40 to 1. I like Abraham Answer at 50 to 1, and I'll finish it with, I got to find the 80 to 1, but so Sergio Garcia at 60 to 1, and then the 80 to 1 shot, I'm going to go Joaquin Niemann at 80 to 1. I also like Joaquin as a first round leader, by the way. Joaquin and Sergio are going to be my first round leader plays, and those are long odds. So enjoy.
And yes, let's all enjoy. Hopefully, as you did last week, you forgot to have the first round leader on the Werenski, but you still had the opportunity going into Sunday, most of Sunday, which was pretty fun. So
yeah,
that is a lot of golf talk. I hope everybody enjoyed the heck out of that. You can then check this out, obviously, in the podcast form. That comes out a little bit later tonight. But now we are going to roll along onto some NFL. As everybody knows, Sia and I have to talk about football pretty much anytime we talk to each other. That includes text messages. So some of those text messages get weird, considering we're talking about one thing and all of a sudden somebody just says, well, what about RG3? So bing, bang, boom, let's get it done.
Nice.
Thank you. So I point to me. I will take the checkmate today. So one thing that has happened recently, we had the NFL with their training camps coming up, and we're starting to see all the players that have opted out due to COVID. And of course, to each his own. Of course, certain people. I know the Giants, Nate Solder. He opted out. I think his son or his daughter, I can't remember, his child has medical unfortunate, it's an unfortunate nature with his kid, and it's super high risk. So he said it's not really worth it for him to play at all. Don't want to sound inconsiderate. I totally respect his decision. I respect all their decisions, but he's been so bad for the Giants that, okay, we'll see what happens. But moving on, there's just been some interesting ones, and I appreciate the heck out of UCF for filling a lot of this out. There have been 6 Patriots that have come out and said they do not want to play, one of which is Dante Hightower. I thought that one was pretty interesting. Patrick Chung as well. So a couple of these dudes on the defense, I think they're starting right tackle, if I'm not mistaken, also opted out. So they've had some pretty important pieces on their team opt out. How do you think this affects any of our bets, Sia? Do you still believe in the Pats, or is this really kind of the straw that broke the camel's back 6 times?
No, it's not 6 times. Yeah, I mean the Hightower news was big, and then the Patrick Chung news was even bigger. So obviously they've got a host of guys that are gone, but they're fortunately in the right division and they have the right coach to maybe manage this. I'm feeling a little bad about as soon as Cam signed, I ran and bet the Patriots, I think it was minus 130 at the time. And I thought I was getting a great number. But now, they're like plus 110 to win the division, or excuse me, they're plus 120. And the Bills are actually now favored at plus 110. So, yeah, I think this is a really big problem, obviously, because, I don't think people really appreciate the fact that the Patriots really leaned on their defense at the beginning of last year in particular. And part of the reason they had to do that is because Tom Brady wasn't very good. And I don't know that Cam Newton's going to be much better than Tom Brady in terms of just, getting the ball downfield. So it's going to be a problem. This all comes down to, in terms of them winning the division, it all comes down to whether Josh Allen is good or not. And if that Bills defense is as dominant as it was last year, if that's the case, they're not winning the AFC East. But honestly, I don't feel too bad about my bet even now. Obviously, I feel bad because I didn't get the plus 120 instead. I got the minus 130, but this is Bill Belichick. And I just refuse to believe that he's the type of guy. And by the way, these guys opting out, I believe that frees up like cap money and things of that nature. So if anybody's going to figure out a way to like make this thing go, it's going to be Bill Belichick and his brain trust. So no, I'll tell you what, I like the Dolphins at 8-1 to win the AFC East. What I'm saying is I like that as a bet because I'm just not on the Bills. I'm not believing in the Bills, particularly at the quarterback position. And if somehow the Patriots just, don't manage to, make their way back, I actually think the Dolphins are the third best team, especially after what they did in the draft and the new culture there, some trades. I just really like the Dolphins. I think 8-1 is a decent number to put, $40 down on or something.
Exactly. Have a little bit of fun. I do think the Patriots are going to be completely fine. I know they're losing some guys. Dante Hightower is more of a locker room leader. Statistically, he doesn't show up as much on the stat sheet now. He's going into his age 30, 31 season, something like that. So he's a little bit older. Patrick Chung, should be suspended anyway because dude gets busted with coke like every other day, it feels like, in an airport. So I don't really know why the hell he's still allowed on the field. But hey, maybe that's just me. I don't know. But yeah, I think the Patriots are fine. I think, now if I was you, I would just take some more money and put it on it at plus 120 because I think they're still going to come out ahead. I still think they're smarter and better more well coached. And Bill Belichick does something with nothing. That's what we always see. The Browns will pick someone in the first round. They'll bust out. He'll pick them up for like a year for no money, and they'll be fantastic. And then they'll go back to the Browns and be terrible again. So we'll see what happens. So I'm pretty confident. Now, granted, their linebacking core is going to be depleted. Obviously, Dante Hightower is not there, and they lost Kyle Van Noy over to the Dolphins. So it's going to be difficult, but
yeah, they lost some guys to the Detroit Lions too. Those former coaches always pick off guys. So they really are going to have to figure something out because it's not the same it's not even close to the same defense as last year.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. But if there's one team that I'm confident in, unfortunately, it is the Patriots. So I think the biggest of the news so far has been it only broke probably about an hour and 20 minutes, 2 hours ago, maybe. I don't really even know anymore. Damian Williams of the Super Bowl winning Kansas City Chiefs, as Joe Buck notably said, of course, we all know him as playoff Damian. He has taken himself out of the NFL season coming up. And that's been a argument. Maybe not an argument, a friendly argument over here at Win Daily Sports. Some people really like Damian. I know you're a much bigger fan of Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Now you have to be, right? If he's the starting running back, I know we have Darwin Thompson there, and I think maybe like Spencer Ware is still on that team from like 15 years ago. Maybe they bring back Shady. I find that hard to believe. But it's Clyde Edwards, it's CEH's world, and we're all just living in it at this point.
Yeah, so just to be clear, I didn't like CEH. I was all on the Damian Williams train in terms of like taking Damian Williams, 3 rounds or 4 rounds after you take CEH. So obviously that goes up in smoke because he's the only guy. And by the way, it's not going to be Spencer Ware. They got DeAndre Washington on that team. He's actually pretty good. He could be that guy that sort of spells CEH, but man, talk about a perfect situation. This guy, in all the sort of Damian Williams truthers like myself, we don't even get to see this unfold, because I really think I genuinely thought I was right that CEH isn't as good as people think he is. And it's sort of like it's almost like a mirage because of what LSU was doing in the space he was working in. So I don't really get to see him sort of getting stuffed and then Damian Williams coming in and scampering for, 12 yards of carry. So that's unfortunate, but I got to say Clyde Edwards-Helaire he's easily a top 10 pick. In any
Now,
format
yep.
you're in, he is easily a top 10 pick. And it would not shock me if people take him, 5 overall. It just wouldn't shock me, particularly in a standard league. I don't, I wouldn't do that. There's plenty of guys, and we have the running back rankings here in front of us, but there's plenty of other guys that I would like to draft in front of him at 5, 6, 7, 8, probably. But yeah, it's a thing now.
Yeah, I mean, he was going probably late second-ish round, and then Damian Williams was going 2 or 3 rounds later in most situations. Now, yeah, I mean, it's his backfield. He catches the ball, as we saw what he did in LSU. He's going to run the ball. He's going to get the opportunities in that high-flying offense. It's kind of a perfect situation for him. And yeah, it's unfortunate because I wanted to see you and Nick. It's Nick who likes Nick just likes the offense.
Right.
Who the hell over here likes Clyde Edwards-Helaire? I don't know. Whatever. It doesn't matter. But it would have been a fun argument to watch unfold, and now we don't even get to see it, which is a little disappointing. But still pretty interesting. And I don't know. And you actually make a really good point. Devontae Freeman. Huh.
Right. Yeah.
Interesting. That's interesting. Yeah, he's still out there. He said he's not going to play unless he gets his money. So we'll see if the Chiefs are willing to give it to him. But I mean, if the dude wants a ring, like what better place to go to than split time with Clyde Edwards-Helaire? That doesn't sound too bad. You're incredible.
Exactly.
Man. You know that? You're incredible.
Thank you. And by the way, maybe he signs a 1-year deal and then tries to parlay that into a 2-year deal next year because he's flying in space this year on Kansas City. So I mean, if you're a running back, you can't take anything for granted. He either wants to play or he doesn't. Nobody's going to throw, $6 million a year at this guy. It's just not a thing anymore. Period.
Yeah, I mean, he's made some solid money too. I mean, as a later round pick, and then he made the Falcons re-up him a couple years too early, so he got a couple bucks. So I don't feel too bad for him. But I agree, take some money, get your ring, man, then go get paid. I think that would be kind of fun. So very good point there. Devin Funchess. I guess that's news. He is bad. I honestly didn't even see this until you put it in the notes. I had absolutely no idea because Bleacher Report and ESPN didn't say, "Oh, watch out, Devin Funchess isn't playing." So, I mean, Devontae Adams was the man. He was always going to be the man. He'll forever be the man there in Green Bay. But I guess as like a wide receiver 2 spot-ish, 2.5 spot opens up, I guess. I don't know. What do you?
I mean, so there's several reasons why this is important, and none of them have to do with Devin Funchess and him being a talent on the field. I mean, what you just said about him is sort of a microcosm of his career. And again, I'm not trying to be a jerk about it. Like, he made the NFL, good for him. He had 1 or 2 good years, but
he could beat me up. I'll say that.
Yes.
I'll go out on a limb. He could beat the shit out of me if he wanted. There, you're good to you. Don't worry.
Sure, why not? But the point is like you said, like, I guess this is news. But to me, the only reason it's news is because it just puts more of a focal point on Davante Adams. From a prop standpoint, we were super big on Davante. I in particular was super big on Davante Adams. I think you can make an argument to draft him like 6th or 7th overall. I'm probably not going that high, but I think he's the first receiver that should be drafted off the board. I mean, I genuinely think he'll have a better season than Michael Thomas, particularly with regard to if you actually analyze their the length of their routes. I mean, I just think Davante Adams is going to have a field day every week if he plays 14, 15, 16 games. He's going to be a lock button first round pick. So the bigger question though is, do they bring other receivers in, or do they wait for cut day and bring some veterans in, from other teams? Does Allen Lazard play a bigger role? But I mean, I think this is kind of more news for Davante Adams than it is for anybody else.
Yeah, that is a pretty good point. I mean, targets have to go somewhere. And if somebody else is on the field, they might go to them. Now, yeah, we have Allen Lazard. Geronimo Allison's not there anymore. St. Brown, right? Or Marquez St. Valdez, whatever the hell that guy's name is. Everyone always takes him every year, and he ends up just being hurt, so that never matters. But it's interesting. It's definitely interesting, and we'll see what happens. I do agree with you. I think they'll pick up some other wide receiver. An interesting, a very funny one, and I say funny because it's the Eagles. Marquise Goodwin traded from the 49ers to the Eagles during the draft, I think, maybe for like a 5th round pick. I can't remember exactly what it was for, but they traded him. So he decided to sit out for COVID. I think, again, something with his family members. And again, totally respect it, totally understand what you're doing. You got to look out for you and yours, of course. So now now the Eagles are back down to a kind of shortened wide receiver core. Alshon Jeffrey's probably, he's going to open up on PUP if he even plays at all. Honestly, I think it would be hysterical if he just sat out just for fun. We have JJ Arcega-Whiteside, who they drafted in the 2nd round of last year. We have Jalen Reagor, who they have in the 1st round of this year. Yeah, and then I think they grabbed a couple more wide receivers this year, but again, kind of back down to a bunch of nobodies, and I friggin' love it.
Every week I come on and we talk about the Eagles when we're talking about the NFL, and it's always the same thing. I always say the same thing. The vibes, they're just not there with the Eagles. Like, a right tackle blows out his knee or a right guard blows out his knee. Deshaun Jackson says something anti-Semitic. Alshon Jeffrey looks like he's going to start the season on pup. There's like, it's one thing after another. And again, boom, this week we get another one. I was on SiriusXM with Jason on Sunday, Fantasy Sports Channel. Check it out, 11 to 1 Saturdays and Sundays. And I was like, we have that stock up, stock down section, part of the show. And my stock up was Jalen Reagor and JJ Arcega-Whiteside before this news broke, of course. And I was like, who the hell is this gifted Carson Wentz? Gifted, I say, sort of like, okay, is he really? But who's he throwing to besides his tight ends? Like, Jeffrey's probably going to start on pup, and he's 31, and he's getting old, and he's always injured. Deshaun Jackson's about to be 33, and he's like a gimmicky guy at this point. He's not a target monster by any means. The other guy they have is Greg Ward. He's not a physical specimen at all. He runs like his 40 time is probably slower than Clyde Edwards-Helaire, which is, by the way, laughably slow compared to other running backs. So my point is, they don't have anybody else to go to other than their rookie and JJ Arcega-Whiteside, who, by the way, was injured last year, but is a very big target. And we know Carson Wentz likes to throw to big targets like Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert. So I think Arcega-Whiteside and Reagor are guys, you really need, you can probably really count on in DFS in particular early before everybody sort of realizes it. And maybe in your year-long leagues, late in your drafts. I mean, Rieger's going to go at, probably a middle round, but JJ Arcega-Whiteside's a really solid play late in your year-long drafts.
He definitely has the opportunity. As you said, he was hurt all last year, but all Eagles wide receivers were hurt all last year, as we know. And, what Carson Wentz did last year was absolutely incredible. Let's see if he can get a couple, just maybe a season with some healthy wide receivers at this point. Yes, Arcega-Whiteside had a fantastic college career at Stanford, I'm pretty sure. So, hopefully those smart dudes can figure it out and he can be just fine over there as well. And that's pretty much it for the big news on who dropped out. I think there may be a couple more. There's some nose tackles who, of course, we know are very important to a defense. If you know anything about football, you take a nose tackle out, things get weird because you can start running the ball. I think the Bears and the Titans, both their nose tackles, but again, they're nose tackles, so I don't know their names, and we're not going to talk about it on a fantasy show. It's just maybe, hey, if you're playing DFS, maybe some running backs against those defenses, but we can figure that out moving forward. One interesting piece of news, Joey Bosa signed a ridiculous contract, 5 for $135 with $102 million guaranteed. So kudos to Myles Garrett for having the richest contract on the defensive end, on the defensive side of the NFL, for a total, I think Adam Schefter said, of 13 days. One thing I will say about this is at least Bosa deserved it. I don't think Myles Garrett deserved nearly that much money. And I actually think the Chargers are probably pretty pissed because Garrett got all that money, so they had to pay Bosa some more. Yeah. But how do you feel about just Joey Bosa and that contract? I mean, they got Justin Herbert, whether you like it or not, he's on a rookie contract, so that definitely helps. So, the next 4 or 5 years, you're going to see Bosa over there getting paid. So, I mean, if there was a time to do it, it'd be now, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Lock it in now. And, in a couple of years, who knows what's happening with COVID, but the salary cap's going to go up and these defensive ends are going to command way more than Bosa is getting right now, which is why the Chiefs locked in Mahomes. Like, there's reasons to do rework these contracts right now. I mean, the Chargers defense is really legit. I don't really think people pay attention to the Chargers much because in the AFC West, you've got sexier teams with Kansas City and Denver with their receiving core now. But the Chargers defense is really good when healthy, and they got all the guys healthy right now. So this is a formidable team. I've always said it. If they had done something different at quarterback, like brought in Jameis instead of who they have right now, I think they'd be in really good shape. They still could have drafted Herbert, but they'd have a better arm talent at quarterback complemented with that defense, the receivers and the tight end they have, and Austin Eckler in the backfield. This team is going to compete this year. I just think they could have done a better job.
Yeah, I think they'll be competitive. And the difference, I mean, there is, I think they'll be competitive and probably win like 5 games. So it's just kind of unfortunate. I agree with you. They have pretty bad quarterback play. Austin Eckler's a solid running back. I'm not going to put him in the top 10, but I think he's a good dude. And my dad's a Chargers fan, so I've always had a sweet spot for the Chargers. And it's always funny. They're kind of a 1 year off, 1 year on team. So last year was their year off. So I don't know, man. This is if we're playing trends, I don't know what the over-under is, but maybe you want to bet it because it's probably pretty damn low, but maybe you want to bet it. I don't know. It's definitely something of note, but I agree with you. They could have been so good, or they could have been better than whatever the frig they're going to be this year, and it's a little disappointing. But if there's a year to be bad, maybe it's this one. I don't know. We're seeing that in baseball now. If there's a year to be injured, it's the 60-game season.
That's funny. I'll tell you what, I think Tyrod, and I'm not the one coming up with this. There have been plenty of people that have beat me to the punch here, but I think Tyrod is sneaky good in fantasy. If you're in a 2 QB league and he's your second quarterback, I think that's a solid play. He's going to do some stuff with his feet, a lot of dump offs to Eckler. He's got good receivers, like I said, a good tight end. So, I don't like Tyrod because of what he to me, he looks at his first read and then he starts panicking and then he starts like scrambling around. And I hate that. Mm-hmm. And but I still think he's going to rack up some fantasy points. So in DFS and in year-long fantasy, I don't think it's a terrible play. I'll give credit to my friend Seth, who kind of gave me some info on that. There've been a bunch of podcasts that I've listened to that have mentioned Tyrod Taylor. So sneaky play.
Well, his name is Seth because that's his name, right? We'll call him Seth because.
So we'll call him Seth Marks because that's his name.
That's his name. So I do like that. And we spoke about it a couple weeks ago. Raheem Mostert wanted to new contract. And I guess it was kind of an empty threat because all they did was kind of just allow him to get some incentives. So that's kind of nice. And I mean, that's kind of cool.
I mean, it's like, what are you going to do? It's like, there's no way he carries the value to like up. I mean, he's a good running back, but like, what Shanahan does with his running back. So it's not like he's going to be like, oh, darn, like we're in trouble now. Yeah. So, throw him a few incentives in like a bag of Skittles and call it a day. What are you going to do?
I love it. And Zach's chiming in RG3 to the Chargers. Zach, you missed it. I already brought up RG3, buddy. Sorry. Maybe next time.
Zach, thank you for bringing up RG3 again. That's the third time I've said him, RG3. I'll tell you what, we're getting some momentum here, and I think we're on such a consecutive like RG3 mention streak. Mm-hmm. I feel like if we get this really going, we might be able to get him on the show. Ooh. And I'll just we'll cut a piece of this and I'll just kind of post it and I'll tag him. I'll be like, dude, we keep mentioning you. Come on the show and we'll donate to a charity of your choice. You can talk about whatever you want. It doesn't have to be football. Maybe you want to talk about a charity or a cause that you want, boom, get him on the show for 5 minutes and the RG3 mentions finally pay off.
Yes.
For me, at least.
Well, honestly, they've paid off for me this whole time. Brings a smile on my face every time I beat you. And it brings emotion to me when I lose. And emotions are good as a human being. We want to feel emotions, especially when we're all stuck inside. Zach, if you don't mind actually adding RG3 right here, right now, I think it would be really appreciated. Maybe he pops in. Maybe he says, hey, what are these guys? Why are they so good looking? Their hair, their mustache, the combination of the two of them. I mean, maybe it's something for RG3. Maybe he's about it. I don't know. We'll see.
You never know until you try. That's the
always
thing.
Worth it. It's always worth it. So, Sia, this was absolutely fantastic. Only once a week for right now, but as I said, we're in contract negotiations. Kind of empty contract negotiations because I'm confident neither of us are going anywhere anytime soon. But contract negotiations nonetheless. So we're trying to figure out what we're going to do for a second show. We're thinking maybe betting specific, which would be kind of fun. As we know, Sia loves betting the NFL. We love talking about over-unders and all these player props, of course. And I don't know, maybe we can be like Al Michaels and just start, ruining things. Like, Zach's going to make a line. How many times is RG3 going to be said? One of us is going to figure it out. We're going to bet the shit out of it and kind of just ruin that. So I think that'll be a lot of fun. But Sia, appreciate the hell out of you as always. Where can everybody find you on Twitter?
At Sianejad, Sianejad.
Yeah, we didn't piss off any fan bases today. Do you want to say something scandalous about like Philadelphia, Buffalo, something like that? I don't know.
I did mention, not so cavalierly, that I don't believe in the Buffalo Bills quarterback. I mean, that's something.
Yeah. I mean, you say that every week, though. It's practically like we say RG3. You might as well just add that to the total list too. It's like how many times how many shows in a row does see it slander Josh Allen? I think it's almost more.
I slandered Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I don't think he's very good, but he's going to have amazing fantasy numbers.
I was going to say, but yeah, that's the same thing you say about Josh Allen, actually. Okay, I'll take that. So Chiefs fans.
I said Deshaun Jackson's anti-Semitic.
Deshaun Jackson said he was anti-Semitic, so that's really not going out on a limb there, buddy. Yes, Chiefs fans, that is at Sia and Jad. Eagles fans, you can come at me. I would love if you did that because, man, I would have a field day at Michael Raziel 1. Make sure, of course, to follow us at Win Daily sports, hop over to windailysports.com. You can get all of our articles. You can get all of our projection models, those cheat sheets that Sia was talking about. We have them for every sport. We're crushing it at MLB right now. We got bets going on. We have our house handicapper. It's still free right now, so you can get all his bets for free. It's really impressive what that dude's able to do with his brain in terms of we're betting units and how units work. And I clearly had no idea what I was doing, and I'm learning a lot, which is very important. We love the education factor too. And $20 a month, you get it all, man. You get it all. So thank you to everybody. And thanks to Zach for bringing up RG3 as well. We always appreciate him. And at RG3, come on the pod. We'll see what happens. So hopefully everybody makes it a very what?
No, I'm just gonna say I'm gonna do like an orchestrated plea next week to RG3. Okay. So like we're gonna have something set up or like really to present to him.
Okay, all cool. Right. We can actually do a screen share, so that'll be perfect. We can do like a slideshow and everything. So everybody, we hope you make it a very profitable night.